Greetings out there, it's Dave Duford again from Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com, and today we are talking about a very popular final expense company called Transamerica Final Expense. And what I'm going to do today is go into great detail about exactly how this product works and discuss the pros and cons behind the product. There's a lot that you really need to know about this company before you ultimately decide whether it's right for you to actually pick them up and use them. And I'll go into explanation why. So here's the overview today, of course. I just pretty much went over it. We're going to get right in the thick of when one would use Transamerica and when would not use one, go over the company briefly, and then summarize everything so I can give you my perspective using them. So let me introduce myself again in case you don't know me. My name is David Duford. I am the owner and operator of Final Expense Agent Mentor. My website is feagentmentor.com. What I do is specialize in the art and the science of field training, phone training, brand new agents to Final Expense, whether they're newly licensed or not, and how to train them into effective, independent, self-sufficient Final Expense agents. What makes my agency different is that I believe training is the cornerstone to a long-term foundation of success, really in any type of field, and Final Expense is no different. And to get that kind of training, one needs somebody who A, has sufficient relevant experience in that field, and B, provides a platform that an agent can duplicate to have the same or similar type of success. So what I do is I dial my agents into a sales and marketing model that's predictable, that's time tested, and is duplicatable, and help them get to the point where they can succeed to the level that they have the ability to. Now, moving on, let's get right into Transamerica. So first of all, Transamerica was started in 1859. They are A+ ranked by the AM Best Company. They're headquartered out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and they have a completely national distribution model. So as far as I know, they're available in all states. They're one of the few companies that are, as well as with their plethora of different life insurance options. Those of you experienced have probably heard of Transamerica. Their term products is probably where they do a ton of their business, as well as their index universal life products and so on. And they do have a large brand name appeal. Most people have some level of familiarity with the large tower icon that Transamerica has. And the last thing I'll mention here that I didn't put on this slide is that my experience of Transamerica is incredibly intimate and detailed. I have written Transamerica's Final Expense product probably since the inception of my career, and continually have written them. So I have a very well-rounded, deep understanding of what goes on in the underwriting process and really where the big failures are for new agents writing them. So a lot of what I'm going to tell you is based on very long-term, consistent experience. And you're going to hear some information that probably isn't necessarily what you'll hear from others, but it's really important because there's a big draw into this product, but there are some definite disadvantages that come along with it, which we'll get into shortly. All right, so here are the main three benefits of working with Transamerica. Very straightforward, very simple. Number one, it's very liberal application. Cannot deny that. You can get a lot of stuff through. And it's very liberal on the prescription schedule. We'll explain that a little bit more in depth. And then they are so competitive. Well, not to say they're not so competitive. They're competitive enough to be capable of covering a lot of different ages, different smoker, non-smoker situations, and still be competitive across the board so they can be used as a bread and butter company. And they do take different forms of payment, Social Security, debit express cards, and they do have a Social Security benefit draft, which we'll get more into later. But let's go ahead and start with point one. So first of all, Transamerica has a very flexible application, which allows a lot of health issues to be approved, not just to be approved for something, but to be approved for day one coverage. So I'll give you a couple of examples where Transamerica is the clear preferred choice for certain conditions. The most common condition is COPD or any sort of chronic respiratory problems. Transamerica will cover a person with COPD for day one, 100% coverage on a standard rating or a standard pricing rating, with as long as the applicant doesn't have any other questions answered on the application with a yes to it. It's a little hard to explain until you actually see the application, but basically, as long as they're not taking insulin or they don't have any current liver issues or heart problems within the past couple of years, generally speaking, they're going to get approved for full first day coverage. Very hard to find with COPD. It's becoming a little more common now, but nevertheless, it has been difficult to get a company to take somebody on anything more than a partial coverage graded type of plan. What's nice about Transamerica, it's not just the COPD they can get coverage for on first full 100% coverage. Also, insulin dependence, not nearly as a big deal, but it can be helpful. Different liver disorders like hepatitis C, even cirrhosis at times can be covered, and we'll get into more how and why. Recent heart issues within the past no less than 1 year, but no greater than 2 years ago. So between 12 and 24 months, if they've had, open heart surgery or a stroke or a stent, they can get 100% first day coverage as long as it's been longer than 12 months and there's no other of these conditions listed that are present at the time as well. And so this is extremely beneficial, and then plus there's no height and weight chart. So you can get these weird niche situations which are usually very hard to get some level of first day coverage for immediate coverage. There are a few exceptions to that. Pacemakers are always considered to be standard coverage, then it depends on the hepatitis situation, or they may have asthma, but if they take their inhalers on a daily basis, that's considered a chronic respiratory problem. So it's not foolproof, but they do really hit a lot of issues that are tougher to find at a decent price, which we'll get into shortly. Now here's the other element of what makes Transamerica very, very good to use. First of all, Transamerica mostly follows what I call a first fill prescription, and what that means is that, excuse me, let me change that. Transamerica actually follows. I can go ahead and change this right here. First event. Just go ahead and change it right as I'm talking to you. Sometimes we make mistakes like this, guys, so bear with me. But hey, it's all good. So trans prescription check. Now, this may sound unintuitive, but let me explain. If, in my experience, writing up, again, hundreds and hundreds of Transamerica final expense applications, I've had many people who have had an event longer than they've taken a specific medication. But because that event occurred beyond the look-back period, even though they may have started the prescription within that period, they were still approved for as level coverage. Now, I've written less Transamerica in the past 6 months than I have in the past 3.5 years. And so what happens is that some of the stuff is in flux and may look at the prescription schedule differently. But my experience has always been that as long as the applicant has had that event past it, even if they've switched meds up or they feel like they need to have a blood thinner now, and even though the stroke was 3 years ago and they started the blood thinner 18 months ago, it doesn't matter. As long as there wasn't an event that caused it but was related to the original event, they're usually okay with it. So that is really useful because a lot of other companies are what we call first fill type of companies where, even if Mildred had her stroke 5 years ago but started her warfarin 18 months ago, they're going to look at the warfarin as the event, okay, whereas Transamerica doesn't. Hopefully that makes sense. So there's a lot of more liberalness with the prescription schedule that way. And I've found you can get a lot more tougher medications through, like nitroglycerin, isosorbides, blood thinners like Xarelto or Coumadin. Those can be good for preferred and standard coverage as long as the event, not if taken, but as long as the event occurred longer than 2 years ago. Now, it's not 100% foolproof, but more often than not, I've gotten a lot of stuff through Transamerica that was no way with other companies, just because the events occurred beyond the 2-year look back. Now, last point here, back to the competitiveness on pricing. That's one of the biggest appeals of Transamerica. They're not the low price leader. They're competitive, and they're definitely not overpriced. But for each of their pricing rating categories, standard and preferred, there is a graded 2-year wait product, but I don't ever write them because you can write a lot of other modified plans that will pay better and will be better priced. They're really good pricing. With the exception maybe the standard smoker rates. There's some conditions that you can be better done placing with companies like maybe America or possibly Liberty Bankers Life that also do first day full coverage for different types of situations. Maybe Great Western even is now a good option for that. So they're less appealing for the standard smoker rates. But for the standard non-smoker rates, which you'll use a lot, again, that's what's going to get your COPD, your recent heart circulatory problems covered. They're pretty good. It's not bad. And the smoking and non-smoking preferred coverage is good for your bread and butter prospects. So, like I said, it's very possible to use this company because of those pricing structure as a bread and butter company. And the truth is, a lot of people do. However, there are some big caveats to that. And I'm going to spend a lot of time going over this because what you have to understand is that my experience in this business, I've been a producer since I started, of course, and I've also been a trainer, meaning I've recruited agents maybe like yourself, experienced or not. And Transamerica at a time was my go-to product to put new agents on. They're very quick in turning appointments around. Again, lots of situations are good with them. But the following issues that I'm going to talk about are the main problems that I have had experienced with them on a recruitment level. And it has to do with the fact, really, to the administrative structure and how they run internally that has been the biggest problems that I've had, which is why I've completely shied away from them and when I recruit brand new agents. So let's go over each of these bullet points because this is very important if you're brand new especially. First of all, Transamerica has the longest final expense application on the market. The standard application, I believe, has 5 or 6 signatures. And that doesn't even include when you have to replace or do a replacement form, or if you're doing grandkid coverage. So you're looking at 5 or 6 signatures that need to be signed. Now, if you ask any final expense producer, they will tell you the more signatures, the more dates required, the more actual physical requirements on an application, the higher your administrative amendments will be. They don't just send off the form to have this signed. But what happens is, again, you need to go back to this customer and redo or re-sign or even just get it signed on top of the fact when you missed it. And so when there's more opportunities to make mistakes, you're going to make more mistakes on par than you would with an application maybe like Security National that just requires somewhere between 2, no more than 3 signatures. Okay? And so why is this important? Because it's important because if you're brand new, you're going to screw up, okay? And you're going to screw up big time based on personal experience if you start using Transamerica a lot. They just require a lot of administrative investment on your behalf. And let's face it, all right? Agent trainers know agents are not detailed oriented and you will screw up. There's already enough to worry about in this business. The last thing you need to do is have an application that's 11 to 15 pages long because you're going to screw up, okay? So and here's the thing. The problem coupled with that is that this company, you have to understand, Transamerica is part of Aegon, which is a giant conglomerate of life insurance companies. And the administrative capacity of a large corporate style life insurance company is going to be bogged down, is going to be very typical of a corporate behemoth. They are just a huge company that moves extremely slow. And so that is reflected in the poorer than average communication relative to other carriers in the business. And when I say communication, it covers from rate up notices, pending requirements, lapse notices. There are agents that don't get lapse notices till 2.5, 3 weeks after the fact, which really suck when, you got to go back and explain to this person, I need to draft your account 2 times. Maybe you could have gotten it if you got the notice right away. But stuff like that is what really makes this very difficult when we consider the administrative side of this. Because many times things happen. Like for example, the pending requirements. There have been multiple times where something was required on my behalf, just personal business. Even though I've written these guys forever, where they did not inform me in an email that I needed to get something done. So here I am running around trying to make some sales, going out to get new business while I'm turned into an administrative gopher. All right? And so it just frustrates me because our job in this business is to make sales on the first call. And just it's assumed that not only you make the sale, but you get done with the sale. Okay? So you don't have to go back a million times. But Transamerica, you're going to do that more. Okay? Because things happen with the more opportunities for mistakes. And the way that they run things internally, it's just going to happen more often, unfortunately. Now, building upon that, the other thing you got to understand is that there's no point of sale. Okay? So when you underwrite, even though it's flexible underwriting, you're still going to run into problems. And again, more opportunities for mistakes, more opportunities you're going to have to go back, get amendments signed, or redo the application, or write-up's going to happen. And this is the thing. Why does all this matter? It takes you away from being in the field, making sales on new business, but it also gives more opportunities to lose those deals. That's hard for you to understand if you're brand new, but I tell agents all the time, you're in that home. If you walk out without a sale, there's a coin toss chance that that person's actually going to allow you to come back, even if they've been entirely and totally honest and genuine with their desire for it. If you walk out, some other guy may walk in, they may change your mind, they may sleep on it, they will sleep on it. Anything's possible. And you're just giving yourself more, again, opportunities not to make sales. And all of this results in a higher not issued ratio than with any other company that I've ever worked with. My metrics in issuing business have been very poor to my standards, and much of it is related to the way that they handle for the mistakes that are made that are just inherent. There's no way to work around it. Some people are just detailed oriented, and most people aren't. And so all these things have really, I've had a come to Jesus meeting about as a manager, that as much as I like this company, they pay very good commissions. They're very flexible. Man, they cover a lot of stuff. I cannot trust this company when it comes to new agents. They just don't have a product that's well structured for new guys that are just trying to get a grasp of everything at the same time. So here's my summary of Transamerica. Transamerica is a good bread and butter company, only for experienced agents. Hopefully that is completely clear. I would never recommend any new agents without any experience in life insurance sales to ever consider taking up Transamerica. You need to put in at least 6 months before I would even look at Transamerica. And it's easier now to do than ever. When I started in the business, they were the only player out there that was taking a lot of these substandard risks like COPD and other issues, and it was very appealing to pick up. But there's so many new carriers that are rolling out now that cover a lot of their product offerings that I don't think it's going to be a tremendous loss to not work with them. Again, new agents using Transamerica is a death trap. All right, you can do and work with many other carriers, and even if you got a good contract, it doesn't mean anything if the product doesn't get issued right, or if you statistically lose 20 or 30% of your cases. It happens, guys. Okay, versus another carrier that issues you only lose 10% on. That's money. And even if there's a 10% comp bonus different or comp difference, you're still probably making more money with the one that's paying you less. Okay, and that's how Transamerica is. All right. Like I said, despite the product advantages, as much as I like what they do, I do not recommend new agents using these guys. Okay, and you'll lose business because of stuff that could have been prevented with other carriers that are more proactive, that are better at communicating. You'll lose money. Okay, with these guys, you will lose money. That's what you do when you take Transamerica board. I would love to come in there and consult with these people and tell them what they need to do if I was king for a day, because this product's fantastic. They do so much right, and this is so true. This marketplace and this product in general in the final expense business. There's these products, man. They'll get 90% there. They've got a really well designed product, but man, there's that one or two things that just totally just blow it, and you just don't use them when you easily could. Transamerica's deal is the administrative side and how they've designed the product itself. So, if after all of this you're still interested in contracting with Transamerica, I can definitely help you out. Um, just go to my website, go to the contact form, and go ahead and fill it out that you'd like to hear more about Transamerica and see what we could do as far as offering you. If you're experienced, we can do pretty good street level contracts, if not a little bit higher. If you're brand new, you're best to kind of learn more about my mentorship program. Of course, if you haven't seen already, I got tons of YouTube videos you can check out, help you get a better idea about what it is that we do. Until then, thank you so much for listening to this, I think, very important video. And if you got any questions or comments, leave them down at the bottom of the YouTube page there. Thumb me up, subscribe to my YouTube page as well. And I've got new videos out every Monday on all sorts of topics related to final expense. And thank you again for listening. Take care.